What's up everybody, Mayfly guys here with another tutorial. Welcome back everyone, Mayfly guys here, continuing our sort of Maine Bugs episodes, and we are moving on to Mayflies. Now, there's a lot of different kinds of Mayflies in Maine. However, I don't think matching the particular style is all that important for rivers and streams. There is something called the hex hatch, and that is important on lakes, but on rivers, it's more about matching what stage of Mayfly. You know, is it in adults? Are they looking for adults? Are they looking for larvae or nymphs or something? Okay, so I have some mallard here, some gold mallard. Oof. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the tips, match them up so that the tips are matched up, and I'm going to tie them in right on top. And I do 3 really loose wraps, and then I pull it back until the tips out front here are as long as I want them. So I want them to be right about there. You want the tips here, I like them to be about the length of the body of the fly, because if you look at a real Mayfly, then you'll see that the body is about the same length as the wings. So from here, I'm going to cut the tips off at the end and work backwards, being careful not to flip it like that. All the way back. Once you get the tips in, it's going to be a lot harder to roll. So once you get back, you're all set. So now the tail, all Mayflies have tails. You can get really particular with your tails and match sort of the style, and that's great, but I just like to match it to the color of my wings. So what I do is I just take a few fibers of that same feather that I'm going to use for the wings, and I'm going to catch that right out back, just like so. And the tails are usually about the length of the body. Like this one might be a tad short because it's got to be about that long. So it might be a tad short, but that's okay. Alright, so the color, there's really like 2 main colors that I use. I use like a reddish brownish and an olivey color. But what makes a really good body are these synthetic quills here. So what you do, you just tie them in wherever, and then you are going to use your thread as sort of the undercolor. So this is an olive one. This is olive, and that's going to be the sort of undercover of this fly. I like these synthetic quills because they make just really good looking bodies. And you can do all kinds of crazy things with them. You can do you know, gold underneath, or you can do whatever you want. It doesn't really matter. Flash underneath, different colors, hot spots. Okay, and I'm gonna go right about there, and then we tie it in. They're a bit longer than they need to be, but you can definitely save this sort of excess and use it for something else. Okay, so there's our body. Now if I was, you know, I could go back over this with something else like UV or something. Okay, so at this point what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull my feathers back, and this is where we're going to start parsing them out. And I'm going to tie out front of them, and then I'm going to split them. Try to split them evenly and do a figure 8 between them. Once, twice, Boom. Boom. If you really want to keep these steady, then what you can do is you can put a little dab of super glue at the base, and that will really keep them nice and steady. So I like these. These are fine. You see I have a nice split there. They're standing up nice and straight. So before I move into my thorax, I'm going to grab my whatever feather you feel. I like to use this one. It's like a brown grizzly. It's like a sort of a brownish grizzly. And it's just, I don't know, I really like the color, and I've had good success with it, so I still use it. So I tie that in, and you want it to start right where your body's going to start. I mean, right where your thorax is going to start. So I've just tied that in gently. My thorax, I'm going to try to match the body, so I'm going to keep with this olive, and this is super fine, micro fine actually. This is hairline olive micro fine dry fly, and you really don't need a lot of this stuff. There we go. Like, less is better. Boom. And I'm just gonna come in between those wings. Oops. Come in between them, it'll just add an extra sort of layer of security. And there we go. So you don't want to crowd the eye. It's really, really dangerous to crowd the eye because it gets messy and slippery and it's just no good. Okay, and then I'm going to try and do 5 wraps of this stuff. 1, 2, 3, and then 2 out front if I can. 1, 2. There we go. Come over the top. Pull everything back. You can, if you're worried about crowding the eye, you can move everything backwards. That's also an option, so that you have like a little gap between the fibers and the eye of your hook. But I don't typically do that. That's more cat skills, and I don't know. Do my little whip finish. I have a few trapped fibers, no biggie. My thread, by the way, is a 6/0 thread, which is maybe a little too heavy for what I'm doing here, but that's okay. You can probably use 8/0 or 10/0 even. So then I'll just come in and pluck those fibers, pluck them out, and there we have this really, really easy mayfly. Again, if you put UV over the body, it looks much smoother, but I mean, that, you know, from down below, this is sort of what they see. I always like to look at my flies from the underside, but that's what they see. And that's great. Like, do you need, does it need to be any better than that? Probably not. Also, one tip about the hackle, it's definitely better to undersize it than to oversize it, because this fly is heavy at the front. If you oversize your hackle, the fly will sit on its face. You know those patterns you see where they have like crazy wraps of hackle? Yeah, they don't fish very well. They don't float very well. And in fact, they're kind of pointless because they sit face down, ass up, right? And so that doesn't fish well. You want it to sit hook down, face sort of level with the water, right? And that's what this fly does. And you'll see that my hackle is within the gauge of my hook here. See that? That will allow it to sort of ride even with the water instead of face down. So this, in Maine, as far as using it, like, I only use them in May and June. That's pretty much it. I just use them in May and June. You know, the mayfly hatch is dwindling in Maine, and it's becoming less and less popular. So, you know, I think that this is a necessary pattern for you to use. but, you know, I wouldn't load a box with them. I would keep them for those rare opportunities in May and June when the mayfly hatches are pretty stout, and that's about it. You know, that's all that I use them for. As far as bigger mayflies, not BWOs. BWOs, blue-winged olives, those are the small, well, they can get kind of big, but usually pretty small. Those are a little different, and we'll get to those anyway. So, that's it for the adult. This is when you can literally visually see mayflies floating on the water. That is when you use this pattern. And that happens not very often, but when it does, whoo, oh boy, when it happens, this is why I say color doesn't matter. It's more about posture and position, because when that instance happens, you basically can throw anything out there that looks like a mayfly and you'll catch a fish. So, all right, that's it. Next mayfly we'll do is either the nymph or the emerger, or maybe a cripple or something. We'll get into different sort of styles, and we hope to see you next time. See ya.